Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 51, which is really, I guess, part B of episode 50, because episode 50 is 50 great excuses to go for a run. Excuses number 1 through 25, which makes episode 51, 50 great excuses to go for a run, excuses 26 to 50. So this is the second part, or the sibling of episode 50, I guess? I don't know. The point is, we're going to go through the last 25 of the 50 excuses to go for a run. And I'm super excited about it because the first 25 were really good. Like, really good. And I haven't run yet, so now I've got 25 excuses to go for a run today. And guess what? By the end of this episode, I'm going to have 25 more. I'm going to have 50 excuses to go for a run. And as you know, I guess I shouldn't assume you know, if you've listened to episode 50, you know the inspiration for this was the simple fact that we are surrounded by excuses to not go for a run. And if we are healthy enough and want to go for a run, and we're going to run with the right purpose, then we need some excuses to go for a run sometimes. And this is a way to just combat all of those excuses that surround us, that kind of badger us. Don't go run when you should go run. Well, guess what? Here are 50 excuses to go for a run when you need them. All right? So we've done the first 25. Now we're going to get into the back half, starting with number 26. You're near a track. Oh, yeah. You're near a track. Now, here's the thing. A lot of runners are nervous about running on a track. And most of the time, those runners tell me they feel like they don't belong on a track. They don't deserve to be on a track. They don't feel like they're real enough of a runner to be on a track. Hogwash. Nonsense. No. If you're a runner, the track is one of your homes. You've got a couple of homes, all right? You've got the roads, you've got the trails, you've got treadmills, you've got tracks, you've got boardwalks. You have so many places where you belong because you are a runner. If you run, you are a runner, and the track is one of those places. So there's an excuse to go for a run. You see a track. It's very hard for me to be at any track. I don't care if it's a middle school track, a dirt track, a high school track, or a track in a stadium. When I see a track, it's very hard not to run a lap. And I'm not saying, if you see a track, you got to go there and do a long run. But maybe, you have access to a track. Maybe do a speed workout. Maybe do a few laps, Just if you're near a track, it just seems to me that's a pretty sweet excuse to go for a run. All right, number 27, you own a dog. All right, you own a dog. Now, not all dogs need to go on runs. They might like to run around, but they might not like to run with you. So the important thing here is to remember, if you own a dog and you go for a run with the dog, remember the run is for the dog, not for you. Like, if the dog has a great time, then any benefit you get out of the run, fantastic. I want you to have that benefit. But don't go for a run demanding that the dog do your run. You make sure the dog leads the way with the effort and the purpose of the run. I'm just going to say that. But if you have a dog who likes to run, geez, what a great excuse. Take that good boy or girl out and go for a run. How happy will they be, right? And it's good for them. And if they have some joy, like what a wonderful gift. So if you have a dog who loves to go for runs with you, then great. What a great excuse. So if you're sitting around like, I don't feel like going for a run because of X, Y, Z, A, G, L, all these different reasons. Okay, excuses hitting all over the place when you're like, actually, I really should go for a run, but I need an excuse. There's my good little doggy. And then go for a run with the dog, And what a nice little gift. So there's an excuse, number 27. Number 28, you want to try all those weird gels and goos and those weird things that long distance marathon, endurance, trail, ultra, marathon, half marathon weirdos all like tape to their jerseys and put in their bags, and they've got all these little sugary little gels, and you're like, what do they taste like? Like, well, what a great excuse to go for a run and try one. I mean, you don't have to go for a run and try one, but I think it's more fun if you're like out on a run and you're like, let's see what happens. If it's like rocket fuel, it's not. And I think it's good practice too. So if you do like running and you find yourself running longer and longer minutes, then yeah, I think it's probably good to maybe throw those in there and just try them out. Because running, every run you go on in some way, shape, or form, you can look at as a practice. And as you take on longer goals, whether that's distance or duration, sometimes you're going to need to be fueling on the run, not just great fueling before the run and after the run, but during the run. So you can practice that, So if you're looking at them and you're like, I don't know if I've ever like tried that stuff. You don't need to be on a super long run to try these gels and goos. You know what I mean? Besides, even if you're on like a 10-minute run, the person you're passing and they see like you've got like a goo clipped on like your shirt or something like that, they're going to think you're on like some massive, ultra or something like that. They're going to be so impressed and just whatever, just nod. You don't have to confirm nor deny. You know what I mean? You just run by and they're like, geez, she's running probably like 30 miles or something like that. And just whatever. Let them believe what they want to believe. You just have some fun and then try the goo and let me know if it's any good, because most of the ones I've tried are horrendous. So anyway, all right, let's keep moving on. You've been inside all day. That's excuse number 29. You've been inside all day. Like, geez, you've been you're just sitting at your computer, at a desk, at work, at a cash register, in a classroom. It doesn't matter. You've been inside all day. Okay, let's go. Let's get an excuse to go outside. If you've noticed that you've been inside for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you've got a little bit of time, well, then use that excuse to just get outside. Get outside, assuming it's safe, like all the waivers, like, I said in episode 50, like, I'm not going to do waivers for every single one of these. Like, you understand, I used to tell the athletes at the sleepaway camp that my wife and I used to run. It's about 250 kids for, I think it was 5 nights, 6 days, 5 nights. We had a sleepaway cross country camp, and on opening night when we went over like the camp rules, there was really one. And it was, don't be a jackass. You know what I mean? Like, you know what the rules are. Like, when it's time to, like, be in the cabin, like, and it's lights out, a jackass would think that they can leave the cabin. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to tell you, don't leave the cabin. Like, only a jackass would think, don't, that doesn't mean don't leave the cabin. So when I say something like, you've been inside all day, go outside and go for a run. Well, if you've been outside all day and it's lightning and it's 2 a.m, yeah, don't go for a run. So my point is, as we go through all of these excuses, I'm not going to be giving jackass waivers, okay? Because I have too much respect for all of you. All right, so let's keep going. All right, let's go to number 30. Wow, we're already at number 30. You play a sport. Any sport. You play a sport. Going for a run's going to help you. It is. Going for a run's going to help you. If you play basketball, if you play softball, if you're a swimmer, if you're a cyclist, if you're a boxer, if you play field hockey, go for a run. And like I said earlier in episode 50, it doesn't need to be a 5K or a 10K or a 15K or a 30, 60, 90-minute run. It can be a 5-minute run followed by a stretch. It could be a shakeout after a especially hard workout. It could be a little bit of a run that just leads to a really nice stretch on a day where there's no practice. It could be just a series of runs over the summer that are going to build confidence as well as endurance as you get ready for tryouts. The point is, running is the foundation of so many different sports. So work on that foundation. Work on that endurance, work on that strength, work on that confidence, work on that speed. Work on getting to know yourself as an athlete. And you can do that when you go for a run. So if you play a sport that's not track and field, cross country, running involved, Okay, incorporate running into your life. Become a runner. You don't have to be competing in cross country or track and field to be a runner. You can be a baseball player who runs. You can be a soccer player, global football player who runs. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Number 31. You can talk about the run you just did with everybody. Or post it. You know what I mean? People love posting about the runs. I love when people post their runs. So if you want an excuse to go for a run, you can talk about it afterwards. I know some people find it annoying when people talk about their running, but they're just annoying people. They're probably annoyed when people are like, you're going to ask me to sing, happy birthday on your birthday. There are some people who do not want people to be happy. I'm not one of those people. I love when people are happy. So if you do a run and you're happy that you did a run, let's talk about it. Post it. I'll celebrate with you. So you can post about your run. You can talk about your run. You can tell people you went for a run. And who knows, maybe you inspire somebody to cross their own starting line today. And maybe it leads to a run. Maybe it leads to something else. So number 31, that excuse is you can talk about the run after you do the run. Number 32, post-run watermelon. Okay, we're going to just talk about this for a second. Watermelon is always good, as long as it's a good watermelon. The frothy watermelon, so it's as long as it's a good watermelon. But a good watermelon becomes a great watermelon, and a great watermelon becomes a transformational fruit after a good run. Okay, so this is what you need to do. Buy a watermelon, put it in your refrigerator. All right, have it in that fridge for a decent amount of time. We'll say a minimum of 6 hours. So the best thing to do is to buy a watermelon and then just sleep on it. You know what I mean? The next day, you go for a run. You come back, cut that watermelon in half. That watermelon now becomes 2 separate watermelon bowls. You don't need a bowl. You just have that watermelon. It's cut in half. And you get a spoon. And then you just sit down and you just crush watermelon. It is so good. And yes, it hydrates you, and there's some great sugars in there and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. It just tastes awesome. It's so good. You don't have to worry about slicing it into perfect triangles. Just cut that sucker in half, and now you got your very own watermelon bowl. Get a big spoon and just dog it. You know what I mean? So that is reason number 32. I should say excuse number 32 to go for a run is to just absolutely enjoy a post-run watermelon. Number 33. You haven't run in a long time. To me, that's a great excuse to go for a run. A lot of people actually use that excuse, I haven't run in a long time, to extend out how much longer they're not going to run. No, I think it works the opposite. You haven't run in a long time? Let's go for a run. And most people are like, I don't know if I can do it. It's like, no. You can't probably run too fast, and you probably can't run for too long. No one's asking you to do that. Remember the no jackass rule? We're just going to go for a run. And you know how good it's going to feel for you to be like, oh my gosh, I was away for so long, and I was able to come right back. Maybe not come right back to the distance, duration, and pace that you were when you left, but you can go right back to the activity of running, and that's awesome. So excuse number 33 is you haven't run in a long time. Great excuse to go for a run. I love it. I love it. Excuse number 34, oddly enough, is you've run recently. Yeah, maybe it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Great. Let's run again. Let's run again, because now we're getting dangerously close to consistency. No. Yes. Consistency. And consistency is one of the keys to great running. So if you've run recently, let's run again. And just like you haven't run in a long time, the no jackass rule is in effect. Well, the no jackass rule is also in effect if you've run recently. If you ran long yesterday or you ran hard yesterday, well, let's not run long or hard today. Let's be smart. So run smart. But if you've run recently, that sounds like a great excuse to run again to me. Number 35, there's a podcast or an audiobook you want to listen to. You know what I mean? Maybe it's this podcast, which seems like a great podcast to listen to on a run or a walk or a hike or in traffic or in your car or on a boom box. You know what I mean? Crush it. Put it on a boom box. Put the boom box on your shoulder and just blast Coach Bennett's podcast. It will be a hit, okay? Now, if you have an audiobook or even a podcast that's not mine, a run is a great time to listen to it. It's a great time. Just like being in your car is a great time. But I think running is a great time to not just work out physically. It's a great time to work out mindfully and mentally, and concentrating on things outside of what the run is asking you to concentrate on, like pace, effort, form, is really good, which is why so many great runs occur when people are talking, which is fascinating if you actually talk to them about that, because you say, you do realize you just had a great run, a great pace for a great distance, and you talked the entire time. It takes work to talk, but they were engaged in a different way on the run. They weren't constantly counting the seconds and the strides and their breathing. So they were able to actually almost be somewhere else while their body was running. And it's amazing what the body can accomplish when you're not mentally, mindfully, emotionally stressing out about the running you're doing. So that's a great excuse, I think, to go for a run. You've got an audiobook or a podcast that you want to listen to. Number 31, you're in a new place. I had earlier, I think it was maybe even in like the top 10, the idea of you want to explore. And this is similar. You're in a new place. A great way to see a city for the first time is on a run. And here's a little advice for you. If you are going to visit a city for the first time, engage with some of the run crews and the run clubs there. They will tell you great places to run, safe places to run. They may also have events where you can come and run with the group. So if you're in a new place, you're traveling and you're thinking, geez, how am I going to get my running in? Well, do a little bit of some homework, like check out the city or the town or the place, find some run crews, some run clubs, some local runners, ask them for some advice, see if there's some things going on, and there's an opportunity really for you to explore. I got to visit London once, and I was there for a very, very brief amount of time. A lot of times on my travels, I don't get to spend too much time in a place, so I don't really get to explore. But usually, there's a run, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to get to run with a local, and that local then takes me on a run, and I get to hear about where I am. I get to see some of the great sights. I get to hear some of the history. I get to learn about some of the neighborhoods, and that's what happened when I was in London, and it was such a wonderful experience. I would not have been able to have run the city the way I did if I had not had access to a local runner. And I'm eternally grateful for that. So, if you're in a new place, great excuse to go for a run. Okay, number 37. We're up to number 37. You've told yourself you're not a runner. Great excuse to go for a run. Because sometimes, we believe in ourselves the wrong way. You hear people say, like, you need to believe in yourself. Well, what if you're believing the wrong things? What if you're believing that you're not a runner? What if you're believing you're not capable of doing something? I think something like this is like a low-hanging fruit type of a thing. If you're saying to yourself, I'm not a runner, well, then go for a run. Go for a run. Because if you run, you're a runner. It's that simple. 5 minutes, 50 minutes, it don't matter. If you go for a run, you're a runner. I'm a dictionary weirdo. You know that. Okay? Running, it's the activity of a runner. So if you go for a run, if you're running, you're a runner while you're doing it. I'm not saying you're going to go and win the Chicago Marathon. What I'm saying is that you're a runner. It's really great to prove ourselves wrong sometimes. It's not always a negative. Sometimes proving ourselves wrong is a positive. Don't ever be afraid to find out that what you believed in was wrong. Okay? You want to know those things. You want people to poke holes in those beliefs that you have. Because if there are holes, it's good to know. Don't live your life looking the other way, ignoring those holes. So if you've gone your entire life saying, I'm not a runner, the best way to try to poke a hole in that is to just go for a run. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, that's it. That's all it's going to take for you to prove yourself wrong. And I'll tell you what, you're going to feel really good when you do. All right, number 38, you have kids. I have kids. I started coaching by coaching kids. There's a couple reasons why, if you have kids or you work with kids, or you're around kids, it could be that you're an aunt or an uncle, something like that. There's so many positives from those kids seeing you run. They see that activity, physical fitness, setting challenges and goals for yourself, finding time for yourself. They see all of these things when you simply go for a run. They see struggle. They see victory. They see someone out there trying to better themselves, someone who's confident, someone who understands that a little bit of betterment every single day leads to a whole lot of better. These are great gifts that you can give the kids around you simply by going for a run. So if you have kids, go for a run. Let them see that you went for a run. And maybe bring them along. Just remember that the best running is going to take place for kids when they're playing running. So if you bring a kid along on a run, make sure it is play. Make sure they're having fun. Then make sure they are having fun. That's the gift you want to give them, that this activity is meant to be a form of play. And it can be a form of play that they play their entire life. So if you have kids, boom, number 38. All right, number 39, flowers are starting to come out. Yeah, I'm going to get a little sappy here, but in a good way. I don't even think it's sappy, although it's kind of fitting because sap is, it comes out of a tree. But I'm talking about flowers. So in Portland now, in the last couple of weeks, the pollen has come out, which is devastating, but so have the flowers, and they are devastatingly beautiful. It is something that I think is really important, and if you add it into your existence this spring, wherever you are, or summer, or fall, or winter, wherever you are, if you can just, I'm not going to say stop and smell the roses, but I think I just did. In some ways, that's it. And you don't even have to stop and smell them. At least just run by and see them, acknowledge them, pay attention to the beauty that is all around you. We just can zip by all of these things. There are so many flowers, whether they're in beautiful gardens or they're wild, that are out right now that I'm really consciously trying to take the time to see, because it's gorgeous. Colors in nature are just, it's mind-blowing. And it really does make you think just how magical the world is around us. So, yeah, the flowers are out. That's a great excuse to go for a run. Absolutely great excuse to go for a run as far as I'm concerned. Okay, number 40, for real? You want to run through a sprinkler. Listen, I'm a kid who grew up in the 80s, you know what I mean? And sprinklers a lot of times were basically the highlight of your day during the summer. Not everyone had, most people didn't have pools and stuff like that. This is, again, the early 80s, at least where I was living, mid 80s. Yeah, sprinklers. You brought a sprinkler out, ooh, chaos. And I'll tell you what, when you would be on a run, when I was like in high school and stuff, if somebody had their sprinkler on, oh, I'm sorry, I have to run through it. I know some people would be like, it's not cool to run through somebody's, it's a yard. I'm not running through shrubs. I'm not running through, your flower bed. It's just a sprinkler. And if you're lucky, sometimes you go through businesses and they've got like the, like kind of the sprinkler that kind of shoots, kind of like in a circle and something like that. So if, you play your cards right, you time it real well, and you're on the sidewalk and it just nails you, there is something glorious about running through a sprinkler. And when you get older, it only becomes more glorious. I'm telling you, it only becomes more glorious. For like a minute, you're like 14 again. I don't know why, it's endlessly and maybe mindlessly fun to run through a sprinkler on a run, or just slowly walk through one post-run. So if you're somewhere where there are sprinklers, I'll tell you what, just about pure bliss to go through one of those. So anyway, you want to run through a sprinkler. To me, that's a great excuse and a worthy excuse to go for a run. Number 41, traffic sucks. I don't really need to go into this too much. Traffic sucks. Sometimes it's just better to run. Have you ever been in traffic and you're like, I could have run here faster? Well, then run there faster. If you know it's always going to be like this, sometimes it's just cool to just run home. You can get your car later or run back in the morning, whatever. Get a ride later to pick it up. The point is, sometimes if traffic's just going to be terrible, just run it. Just go for a run. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty awesome when you realize, like, you're passing all of these cars. And you're like, I can do this. I can run, whether it's 5 blocks, 10 blocks, 20 blocks, half a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 1K, 5K, 10K. I can cover this distance. I can get to where I need to be by powering myself. And if you're passing traffic, I mean, geez, it just feels so good. You see all these people that are just kind of getting bitter in the car, and then you'll pass, you can see like a runner in the car, and they like nod, like, yeah, that's the way you do it. So if traffic sucks, that's a good excuse to go for a run. Number 42, you're at the bottom of a hill. This is weird because I used to hate running uphill when I was younger. Most of it came from pure laziness. Now, when I see a hill, whether it's a sharp hill, like a short, sharp hill, or a long hill that's steep or gradual, it's hard for me not to say at some point I'd like to run that. And I think too often we don't just say, you know what, screw it, why not? And just go run it. You got a pair of jeans on, just go do it. Who cares? Just go do it. Have some fun. Or remember where it is and work it into your week of running where you're like, at some point I got to do a run where I hit that street or I'm at that park and I'm going to run that hill. There's something satisfying about cresting a hill, especially one that you've seen from afar or in the car, and you're like, I bet that's going to be brutal. And maybe it is brutal. Maybe it's not. Who knows? The point is, if you find yourself at the bottom of a hill, that's an excuse to run, either in that moment or later. Remember those epic hills. They're great. And by the way, I forget which one it was earlier where I said you can talk about the run with everyone. I think it was back like number 31. Listen, when you drive up that hill or you go past that hill, you can always point it out and tell people like, I've run up that. And they're like, no way. And you're like, oh, yes way. And it's just a chance for you to just basically show off. You know what I mean? Why not? You ran up the frickin' hill. Celebrate it. All right, let's keep going. Number 43. You need to get away from screens. You need to get away from screens. I'll tell you what, I'm not proud of it. In the last 2-3 weeks, some of it was because of travel, and as a result, I'm blaming travel when I really shouldn't. It's not even a real excuse. I was on my screens way too much, primarily my phone, way too much. And it can start to make you feel kind of ill. And then you kind of develop this habit where you're constantly checking for like updates of what I don't know. Running has saved me because I've put it down and said, I'm going for a run. And it has been so good to get away from the screens. So if you find yourself on your phone, if you find yourself on your computer, and you're suddenly realizing, I'm not doing anything, I'm just wasting time, well, take back some of that time and invest it in a run. So that would be a great excuse. Number 43, you need to get away from some screens. Number 44, it's crazy windy out. Yes, it's crazy windy out. I'll tell you what, as long as you don't try to fight the wind, running in the wind can be a blast. Like, especially I've mentioned running on the boardwalk. So occasionally you'll get some really, really, really intense wind on the boardwalk. But since you're running in a straight line, it's usually at your back in one direction and in your face in the other direction. And depending on, how well you lay out your run, you may be starting into the wind or you may be ending into the wind. Whatever. The point is, a lot of times you can fight that wind and you can be struggling with it. And it's like, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. If you just embrace the fact that you've got like a steady 25, 35 mile an hour wind in your face, it's not that bad. It's kind of ridiculous because you can get like shoved by the wind and you almost have to laugh. In fact, I recommend you do laugh if you find yourself running on a very, very windy day. Just embrace it. It's nuts. It's not normal. Just like when the wind's at your back and suddenly you feel like I could run forever and I can't believe I'm running this fast. Well, you kind of are being pushed. And by kind of, I mean, you're definitely being helped along by the wind. So if you're going to enjoy that part, well, enjoy the other part too. It's just wind. And it makes it less miserable. Because a lot of times people say, oh, the run sucked. It was so windy. It was in our face. It was slowing us down. Of course it's slowing you down. It's a 25 mile an hour breeze. It's a 25 mile an hour wind in your face. Yes. You're surprised it's slowing you down? What? Like, just embrace it. Embrace it. Run by effort. I mean, who cares what the clock is saying? The clock isn't going to tell you the truth with the wind in your face, just like the clock ain't going to tell you the truth when the wind's at your back. So just embrace it. So if it's really windy, I think that's an excuse to go for a run. Number 45, you want to see how fast you can run, fill in the blank. You want to see how fast you can run, fill in the blank. That blank could be 1 lap around the track. Great. Go check it out. 1 lap around the block. I've got like it's a block that's maybe about 600 meters right outside my house. And it's a slight uphill in one direction. And it's kind of fun to just do it every once in a while. I've never really done it all out, but I do want to do it all out sometimes. I do, like, who cares? Like, is it a 5K PB? No, it'll just be my little mini block loop. But you can do that for a 5K, for a mile, for a 1,500, for a 1K, for a 2.5K, for a marathon. I mean, you know what I'm saying. You can do it in actually a different way. You can do it duration-based. Like, how much distance can you cover in 3 minutes? You know, I mean, there's so many things that you can do, but you can have fun where it's just as simple as like when you were having races on the playground. It doesn't need to be some epic competition where there's, race directors and there's, water stations and there's a helicopter flying overhead taking, video. Like, I have a block outside of my front door that I can run around. And I can just see how fast can I run it. And you know what? 2 months from now, I can just go out and say, let's see if I can go faster. I mean, or maybe it is one of those crazy windy days, and I'm like, let's see how nasty this wind is. I'm going to run as hard as I can, and let's see just how awful this time is going to be. But I bet it's a lot of fun. So there's a lot of different things you can do. But I think a great excuse is just to say, I wonder how fast I could run X distance or how far I could get in X minutes or seconds. I don't know. I think it's a good idea because it's a challenge, which is also number 46. You need a challenge. I think going for a run is a great excuse to challenge yourself in some way. You don't feel like running, but you know you should run. Okay, this is a challenge of your discipline, your perseverance. I'm going to go and I'm going to run that hill. Okay, it's a challenge of how confident are you? How smart can you run the hill? Because you know you can run the distance, but can you run relaxed enough and at the proper effort to run the entire hill? That's a cool challenge. I mean, these are the types of things that you can do. The challenge isn't always how fast or how far. There are so many different ways you can challenge yourself. Can you go out on a run and enjoy it? Can you go out there and be a good teammate to yourself? Can you not be a crap teammate to yourself and talk trash to yourself in your head? That's a pretty tough challenge, Can you run tomorrow morning? Because that's when you have to run. Because the rest of the day is booked. Can you get up and run? It's a challenge. It's exciting. It doesn't have to be like, something stressful and awful. It can be like, let's see if I can do it. Maybe you can't, who knows? But maybe you can. Look at it as a fun challenge, especially when you're trying to do hard things. Don't make it hard to try to do a hard thing, is what I'm saying. All right, moving on. You can get muddy, number 47. Oh, yeah, that's right. You can get muddy. There are very few moments anymore where you're just allowed to get muddy and just look like a wreck. But running's one of them. So if it's been like out here in Portland, it's always raining. So if I go for a run in the woods, I'm going to get destroyed with mud. But I get to come in and no one's like, oh, you're a mess. It's like, whoa, how was the run? It's like celebrated. It's cool. And it's fun to like rip through a puddle and it just explodes everywhere. Especially if you're running with people. And you have some people who like, they know they're going to get muddy, but they spend like the first 10 minutes thinking there's a chance they're not going to get muddy. And then like you run through a puddle and it explodes and it gets to them and they're like, oh, come on. And then that frees them up to actually enjoy the rest of the run. Oh, yeah. So there's a lot of fun you can have just getting muddy. And I think it's good in a lot of ways. I think sometimes getting dirty in that way is cleansing. So anyway, all right. Number 48, you're healthy enough to go for a run. I think that's, I could have been the first one. I could have been excuse number 1. You're healthy enough to go for a run. That's a good enough excuse to go for a run because I've been hurt and I've been sick. And I haven't been healthy enough to go for a run. And I thought, you know what? When I'm healthy enough, I'm not going to forget this. And sure enough, I forget it. So it's kind of one of those excuses I wish I had taped to the door So when I was standing there wondering, am I going to cross the threshold and get this run started, I could look at it and it says, you're healthy enough. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go for a run. So I don't need to wax any more on about that, but that's 48. 49, which means second to last one. Second to last one? Yeah, second to last one. You want to feel like a kid. I kind of talked about this when I said if you have kids. Well, the reason why I think kids get interested in running when they see adults do it is when they see adults having fun. And I think when they see adults having fun, they think maybe this is fun. And I think the best way to have fun is to not let go of that inner kid that you've got. Run for the right reasons. It is a form of play. It is a great way to challenge you. It is a great way to challenge you. Those butterflies are a form of excitement. Just hold on to that kid that wants to run. If you can do that, if you can keep that kid in the run, you're going to keep running for the rest of your life. Okay? Hold on to that kid. Number 50. Here we go. The finale. The final one. The last one. Number 50 of 50 excuses to go for a run. You want to celebrate with me. Oh yeah, did I just make this about me? I kind of did, but it really starts with you. It ends with me. No, it ends with you still, but I'm there in the middle. You want to celebrate? I'll celebrate with you. I love to celebrate. I love to party. So if you go for a run, yeah, you let me know. Or you bring me along and just know that I know that what you did was worthy of celebration. 1 minute, 100 minutes. It don't matter to me. If you start a run, you can finish a run. And if you finish a run, that's a victory. That's a win. That's worthy of celebration. That's your excuse, your 50th excuse to go for a run. You want to celebrate with me? I want to celebrate with you. And that's 50 excuses to go for a run. Now, you may have 50 excuses to not go for a run, but now we're meeting you straight up, head on, with 50 excuses to go for a run. So you let me know which of these you used. You let me know which of these came in handy that you've used multiple times or you're now going to use when you get hit with excuses to not run on those days when you really do want to run. You are prepared now. So, thank you for listening to episode 50, and this is technically 51. Thank you so much. And thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for rating and reviewing the podcast. Thank you for running. And until next time, until that next starting line, until the next time we get together, whether it's on the podcast or a guided run or a live event or the newsletter, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you're not already following or subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening, well, I really wish you would because it helps a lot. Also, check out the show notes because you'll find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter, as well as all the social media sites that I'm on. Places like Threads and Facebook and Instagram and Mastodon and YouTube and even the artist formerly known as Twitter, whatever that dumpster fire is called today. You'll find a link to it because I'm on there. Thank you so much again for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself.